They say your brain never really stops hearing a sound. It just learns how to ignore it. That reminds me of the old clock in Jack's house. Its ticking gets louder when everything else goes quiet. A soft, steady rhythm, like something breathing. Through wood and brass. Every night I hear it. Same corner, same pattern, same feeling. Like time is watching me from between the seconds. The fifth letter spoke of a clockmaker. Jack got nervous, tried to change the subject, switched letters. But it was too late. The envelope was already in my hands. It was signed by a man named Auguste Bellamy, a watchmaker. And if what he wrote was true, then that thing in Jack's corner isn't just a clock. It's a confession. You knew him, didn't you? Auguste Bellamy.
Some clocks don't keep time, boy. They keep secrets. Problem is, most folks don't like what those secrets got to say.
This letter wasn't with the others. You didn't forget it. You hid it.
I didn't hide nothing. Sometimes, the house just knows when to keep quiet. Bellamy. He had hands made to fix time, but a heart that kept wondering why it breaks.
And his clock just ends up here?
Some things don't get passed down. They come back, like they remember where they were, and who still owes them answers. Go on then, read it, but don't blame me if the ticking finds you too.
To whoever finds this, I do not ask for belief, only for silence. Silence is the only thing that's ever listened back. It was winter, 1949. St. Mauro Parish sat under a fog that refused to lift. Daylight was a rumor, nothing more than a pale smear behind curtains of gray. The streets smelled of wet timber and coal smoke. Even time seemed reluctant, dragging its feet like it knew something was wrong. I stayed alone. My workshop, and hidden behind the old chapel, sat forgotten. Down a gravel path the maps had given up on. Inside there was only dust, the scent of oil, and the steady tick of a dozen clocks. Each one a life I had crafted, each one loyal. But that season, something shifted. The silence changed. Not the kind born from peace, but from presence. The kind of quiet that watches. That's when he arrived, the man with the design. He came just after sunset. No carriage, no footprints in the gravel, just a knock, 3 sharp taps. Like the wood itself wanted to be opened, I expected a priest or a traveler lost in the fog. But he was neither. Long coat, the color of era, wet ash, buttons that caught the light like old mercury. Skin, pale, almost like paper left too long under the moon. And his eyes, they didn't move much. Like he was seeing through them, not with them. No name, no pleasantries. He simply reached into his coat and unfolded a parchment, a blueprint, for a clock. But not a clock like any I'd seen in 37 years of building time. No spring, no balance wheel, no escapement. Just an empty casing, carved with grooves I couldn't read, and symbols shaped like closed eyes, etched around its rim. He said 5 words.
Build this. Payment is inside.
Inside the scroll were 7 coins, old, heavy, worn smooth by hands that didn't belong to him. I should have said no. I should have closed the door, let the silence return to its rhythm. But something in me, or something else in the room, made me nod. As he turned to leave, I saw it, a trace of soot falling from his collar. It hit the floor and disappeared. So I began. I spent 2 full days just looking at the drawing. There were lines that shifted, not changed, just moved when I blinked, as if the blueprint didn't want to be understood all at once, like it was hiding something. Until you were ready. I started with the shell, walnut, dark. I don't remember choosing the wood. It was there, already cut, already waiting. Then came the carvings, symbols, like eyelids closed at first glance. But the more I stared, the more I knew they were opening, not to me, to something. When the casing was done, I reached for gears, but I didn't craft any. No teeth, no screws, no spring. Still, I sealed it shut, not because it was finished, but because it felt finished. As if it already knew how to move, I placed it on the bench, and the moment my hands left the wood, it began to tick, soft, steady, like breath caught between words. I opened the back, nothing inside, pressed my ear to the glass. The sound wasn't in the clock, it was coming through it. That night I didn't sleep, not because I was afraid, but because the ticking followed me. It moved in rhythm with my own heart, and once, just once, before dawn, it skipped a beat, and so did I. The dreams began on the 3rd night. Not nightmares, not screams or fire, just stillness. I'd be in a room I didn't recognize. No windows, no doors. Bare walls lit by a pale, sickly yellow light, with no source I could see, and always, in the far corner, a figure, motionless, facing away. The first night I tried to speak. No sound came. The second, I tried to walk toward it. My legs refused, like the room was holding me still. By the fourth dream, the figure had turned. It had a face, but no eyes, not sockets, not scars, just smooth, unfinished hollows, like someone had forgotten to carve them, but somehow I knew it was looking at me. I blamed exhaustion, madness, maybe, until Mr. Duval came by. He was just there to pick up a mantelpiece repair. 10 minutes, nothing more. 2 days later, he returned, pale, shaking, eyes red like he hadn't blinked in hours. He asked about the figure. He had seen it, same room, same light, same face. I had never spoken of the dreams aloud, and then others came, neighbors, a boy delivering milk, even a passing nun from the rectory. They whispered about hearing ticking, not in my shop, not in town, in their homes, in their dreams. So I did what I thought would end it. I locked the clock in a trunk, sealed it tight, and buried it under the chapel floor. The next morning, it was back on my bench. No dust, no scratches, still ticking. I tested for magnets, for wires, even took a chisel to the inside. Nothing. But the ticking, it wasn't from the clock anymore. It came from the air around it, like the sound had become part of the room. I stopped sleeping altogether after that, because every time I closed my eyes, it was there, waiting. It was the 13th night. I stayed in the workshop, every lamp lit, no shadows left to hide in, or so I thought. The clock stood on the bench, and for the first time in days, it was quiet. The ticking had stopped. Not like it had run out. More like it had decided to listen. I stared at the hands. They didn't move, but the air around them, it shimmered, barely like heat, but cold. Then, at exactly 3:03 a.m., the lights flickered. Not all at once, just enough to let me know I wasn't alone anymore. I turned to the glass above the workbench, an old mirror I used for fine details, but it wasn't a mirror anymore. It deepened, not darkened, deepened, like the surface had given way, and something inside was pushing forward. Then I saw it, closer than ever, that face, wax-pale skin, and those empty hollows, not blank, but watching. It didn't speak, but I heard it, not in my ears, in my bones. A question, no words, just a shape inside. My skull, pressing itself into thought.
How long have you been watched?
I couldn't move, couldn't blink. Time itself refused to pass. Then the mirror pulsed once, like a heartbeat, inside the glass. And then it was gone. The reflection returned. The lamps steadied, and the clock started ticking again, but not like before. Now it ticks once, every 3 seconds, like it's not measuring time anymore, but counting it down. At first light, I wrapped the clock in oilcloth, sealed it with black wax, and laid it inside a box lined with salt and iron filings. Old protections passed down in whispers from my grandmother's tongue. I carried it across the parish, past the chapel, beyond the fog, to a post station no one used anymore. Paid a stranger in a long coat to send it north. No name, no return, just a random address from the back of a catalog. I came home and waited. No dreams that night, no ticking. Just silence, so deep, it felt like the walls were listening. For a moment, I let myself believe it was over, but by morning, it was there, back on my bench, still wrapped, wax unbroken, still ticking. I don't think I built that thing. I think I unlocked it, released it, let it remember the way. Maybe the man in the coat was never real. Maybe he was just the first echo. This isn't a warning. It's a surrender, not of fear, but of space. Because the clock, it doesn't measure time. It measures attention. And I've given it mine for far too long. So if you still hear the ticking, it already knows you're listening.
You knew what this was the whole time. That clock's been in your house for years.
It don't tick for everyone, only when it remembers you. You could have gotten rid of it, burned it, buried it. Can't bury a shadow, son. Can't burn a sound. That clock ain't just brass and wood. It owns the silence between things.
You said some things come back, that they find their way home.
They don't come back for where they've been. They come back for who forgot them.
It doesn't make sense. Clocks don't run without gears. That's not mystery. That's physics. Maybe it's resonance. The wood, pressure, a trick of acoustics. There has to be something under the surface. I heard it, in my dreams. Not just the ticking, the face. Same one Auguste saw. It wasn't just a dream. Last week, in the mirror. Just for a second. Eyes like hollow smoke. You knew I'd see it, didn't you? You knew the ticking would get louder once I read that letter.
Folks think time moves in a straight line, but it don't. It settles, like dust, on things folks would rather forget.
Jack, just tell me what it is.
Ain't the clock that strange, boy? It's the silence around it. Most people live whole lives never really hearing the seconds pass. But once you do, you start wondering, what's hearing you?
So what is it then? A haunting? A machine? A presence?
If you hear it, that means it sees you. And if it sees you, maybe it's waiting.
Waiting for what?
To see if you'll forget. That's all it ever wanted.
I tried recording it. Playback, dead quiet. Moved it to the garage, but it still whispers near the bed. And last night, I woke at 3:03. No ticking, just breathing. Not mine. Some clocks don't measure hours. They measure attention. And when the counting stops, something else begins.